Hi, everyone. Welcome to the special episode of the TimingResearch.com crowd forecast news. This is episode number 390, and we are recording this on the market holiday, June 19th. And this is going to be a solo episode for the option professor. And you should be seeing his screen right now. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him.
Okay, thank you, David, and welcome everybody here. We're going to go over quite a bit of information in the next 30 minutes. So please, if you can, get a pen and paper handy or some way to try to follow along if you could. Before we get started, we have to always say that short-term trading and options involve risk and they're not right for everybody. You should always consult your brokerage firm so you could determine your risk tolerance and your suitability. Again, past performance is not indicative of future results, and opinions and observations that I share with you today are just that, informational purposes only. And what I talk about today is not advice, of course, because I don't, have intimate details on everybody. I'll just be giving my opinions. Okay. Now, we're going to quickly go over the major indexes and a couple of markets, and then we're going to go over things that are happening this week that I think might be very important. Also, we're going to show you the technicals that we use to try to figure out when the timing is best. Moving averages, price and time, and relative strength, momentum. And we're going to be talking about that relative strength divergence that has been very, very effective for us. So we'll talk about that in detail. Let's first get off here and get going on what's going on with the markets. Again, today they're closed, but the S&P right now in the markets is down about 560. I look at things on a 20-year basis, a 5-year basis, a 1-year basis, a 1-month basis, and a 1-day basis, but not too much on 1 day. Basically, I stop stop it at about 1 month. I may use the other ones if I want to just get a better feel for things, but those are the basic ones I look at. So you can see stock market, again, a big top up there at 4,800, comes down to 3,500, is back on the bicycle here. 4,200 was the breakout. And so obviously after that, we had all the short covering and maybe some FOMO, and that's where we are now. Let's just see right now what it looks like on the 5-year. Your RSI here was 63 and now it is at 68. So it's growing. We'll have to see if that RSI starts fading. And if we don't make any new highs, that could be our indicator that there's a divergence, and that could indicate we're going to have a pullback to the mean, which would mean a move back down. But right now, no evidence of that on the charts I'm looking at. S&P 500 here, we had a high point there of 75. The next high point over is 70. That's a divergence. So that's your first signal that they could be weakness off of that high point, which was 44.93. Again, if you have a high point there of 44.39 and you have an RSI of 75, you can see it right on your screen. And the next bar over is a new high of 44.93, but RSI is at 70. That's when you hit it. And obviously, if you did hit it at that area, you're looking at what? A 50-point drop already off of that number. Not too shabby. Are we going to revert back to the mean? We're going to know that pretty much, I think, by Tuesday or Thursday of this week, because they tend to be big turnaround days. The 1 month, again, you had a high point here of 67 and a high point over here of 69. So no real divergence there. But again, we'll have to see if it holds these numbers and see if it wants to fall down into some of this more distant support. We'll see again this week. It's going to be a very big show me week because of the big advance we've already had. But we don't step in front of freight trains. And so there's not a lot of evidence of a turn yet, except for that one chart that I showed you on the 1 year, where when we went up to the high point of 44.93, there was a divergence. So again, that would be your first warning signal that a pullback could be happening. That and the fact that we dropped 50 points off of that number. Okay, let's talk about the Qs. These are going to be your tech stocks. And this is where I think there could be vulnerability. Again, let's see, because I'm going to go over some right now with you in a moment here. We had a high point here on, let's start talking about the 20-year. Big breakout there, RSI is 58, RSI is 61. So it is moving higher. On the 5-year, RSI 76, RSI now 76. So again, big new high on the 5-year, but I don't see the RSI going through the roof. A little bit of a warning signal there. Now we look at 1 year. 1 year high point here, we had a 75, and now we've got a 75 again. So the RSI is starting to level off, even though the market's making new highs. We'll have to see if that means anything once this week gets started. Okay, on the 1 month, which is for short-term traders, that's where you'd be doing your weekly options and stuff like that. You're talking about a high point there of 78, followed by a 77. Little bit of a divergence there. That's why it's pulling back. Pulled back from the 73 and change down to 67. Okay, we'll have to see if it starts breaking under here and if it's going to revert more to the mean. Let's take a look at those small caps. Small caps is your Russell 2000. Big run there. Let me show you how we caught that run. Okay, here you've got a low point down there down here. You got a low point of 51. You got another low point of 46, followed immediately by a 50. So it starts moving up. And then once you get against the red line, you let it ride. But what about up here? High point of 65, high point of 63, 61. So you got a divergence. Okay, it's making new highs, but the RSI isn't. That's why you're pulling back a bit. And the RSI looks a little heavy down here. And this area of 60 on RSI is very important. If we can get through 60, you can accelerate to the upside and RSI might go to 70. If you can't go through 60, it's a resistance zone and it could be an area where it would fail. So we're keeping an eye on the Russell here, that's for sure. You know, they did a rebalancing here and that ends on the 26th. So you got one more week of fooling around with the rebalancing. That's caused a lot of buying activity. But in reality, look where it was from the October lows. It's made some kind of a run finally. Look, it didn't do anything for a long time. And then the last couple of weeks, it got on its bicycle. But again, a lot of that might have to be with the built-in reshuffling. What again, we've always been saying this 190 area is some resistance. Okay. So you see this purple line comes in there right around 186. So again, it's under 186. That's a big line. If it starts trading above 186, that would be positive. Starts failing from here, not so much. So, and all the moving averages, while they're turning up a bit, they still are underneath the market here. On a 20-year basis, again, this is where we were getting our resistance zone. You got these things meeting where? Right at about 193, 195. 193, 194. That's really key for me. If it gets through there, it opens the door to all those 200 numbers. If it can't get through that door, then obviously with the red line underneath all the rest, if it turns down, it could be going down to hit this support as well. So again, jury's not out on the Russell, but if it gets above here, I would imagine we're going to have a big catch up here, and that's the place to be. Small caps and mid caps. Again, much lower valuations, and they haven't had nearly the move as the rest of the market. So if the market is going to broaden out, that would be the place where it would go. Okay, now let's get into some of the RSI stuff I want to talk about. Again, first I'm going to go over housing. You know, housing this week, we've got news. News sometimes creates volatility. You got housing starts, housing permits, housing sales. Let's take a look at some of these things because I do have a lot to cover here. I'm going to get moving at a good pace. So you got D.H. Horton, okay? Obviously a big move up to new highs, all-time highs, right? Okay, I guess they haven't noticed that mortgages are above 6%, maybe going towards 7. Here you go, 63. Next move up is 65. So you got a little bit of a new high on RSI. And again, it's going through the 60 number. So there is an acceleration to the upside potential or a fail from here. That's why this is a big area for this stuff. If they come out with great numbers, you know, on housing and starts and this, well, in sales, you know, then maybe it's just going to go. As soon as it broke 110, it looks like it has some legs. But again, it's not way into the 60s. It could easily have a problem from here. Here you go. You're at 69 on this one. And again, let's show you an example here. You know, this thing was trading RSI where? Right around 50, 60, right here at 85. Once it broke through 60 convincingly, it had a very big run up all the way to 116. Right now, you have 72 there, and you've got what? 72 there. So you got a flat RSI on DH Horton. What about here? 66 versus what? 64. A little bit of a divergence. Got to keep an eye on that one. And then basically you're looking at a high point on RSI of 71. Then you got a high point of 62. And then you got 64. And now it's in the 50s. Short term, this would be a put candidate. 118, 117 on a short distance deal, maybe even 116, and they might be quite cheap. And then if you get the pullback, obviously that option would expand dramatically. Limited risk, short duration means it's risky, right? But if you catch a turn, like when it goes from 117 down to 113, and you get a 117 that goes 4 points in the money, if it's a short-term option and the premiums are probably pretty good, you might get some pretty good action on that. So if you're short-term trading that, I'd keep an eye on that right now. All right, let's take a look at another one, Lennar. And since we're going to talk about short-term trading, I'm going to stick with the 1 year and the 1 month. Okay, so here you got Lennar with a high point here of 65, and then it jumps over here to 71, and then it jumps over here to 72, and then it goes over to 67, and now it's at 63. So this is a candidate of a potential turnover, but nothing dramatic. This one here, you've got a high point of 67 and the next high point 67. So this one this sets up as a little bit of a rolling over, but not a lot. And again, on a 20-year basis, these things are all making all-time highs. Go figure. I know we're short of housing because for 10 years after the great financial crisis, they didn't build a lot. But I don't know. The cost of getting into a home has really risen. And again, a lot of people that are already sitting where they are, I don't know how much they're going to do. But we're going to find out this week because they got statistics coming out. This high point was 70 and this high point is 64. So that might be telling us, that there could be some resistance up here. Keep an eye on it this week. There could be a potential here. Next one is Pulte. Let's see if that looks any different. They all look very strong with a little bit of a slowing down in momentum. 70 there, and this one's up at 70. So you got a brand new big high, but the RSI is not really making new highs. So you get a little hint that there could be an exhaustion up here. Could be. That's why the puts will be dirt cheap, and if it does turn, they're going to explode. 76 here on that one, and then 76. So brand new high, but no big action on the RSI. Here's another one with Pulte. High point there, RSI was 66. New high point, 69. Another new high, 68. Again, RSI slowing down just a bit. Now you've got what? High point here, 75. High point here, 64. That's a divergence. Another high point here of 70. So it came up to the high, well, still underneath 75. And then you've got 54. This one is this looks weaker than some of the others. So keep an eye on Pulte. Again, when you think about it, how many people are long this stock? I mean, the darn thing's gone from it's gone from 38 to 75. Is anybody long? Sure. Does anybody want to take any profits at some point? Maybe. This is 72, this high, this is 83, this high point here I'm showing you. That's the high point there. This big new high has a RSI of 68. So, I mean, this is like where you try to look for your puts and try to take a shot at it. Because again, it's limited risk, it's a gamble, but again, the puts will be fairly inexpensive up here. I would think short-term puts. And if you get a nice big explosion on downside volatility, that's when those things can really move. And if they're wrong, you walk away with a loss of the limited risk premium. Last one here, KBH. Okay, on KB Homes, let's see what that's telling me here. Again, probably similar to the others, 71 there, and now the RSI is at 74. So no divergence there. How about on the long-term one? Okay, you got a high point there of 59, a high point there of 63, and now the high point here is 65. So again, these are in crunch time territories, I think, on some of these. Here you got high points here of 79, almost 80. Then you got a new high point here, 67. Short term, which if you're trading, weekly options and stuff like that, that's what you're looking for. Short term, it does look like it's got a decent divergence. So keep an eye on these housing stocks if they don't get the numbers they want. And if it's a buy the rumor, sell the fact, meaning they've been bid up for a reason. These housing numbers may come out great. But if everyone's already bid it up, it could be a buy the rumor, sell the fact. So I would keep an eye on these things this week for sure. Okay, look at the tech situation here. Okay, on the tech. I'm going to go over some of the big stocks in tech, see what they look like. I'm going to look at them on a short-term basis, 1 year and 1 month. Okay, so that had a high point of 72 when we hit that first 184 mark, 185 mark, right? And then the next new high here comes in at 69. Okay, that is a, let's see here. Okay, here you're at 66. And here you're at 69. Oh, it made a new high. No divergence on that one. On the 1 month, though, where was this high? This was at 68. What about this high? 69. What about that high? 64. So on a very short-term basis, you got a little bit of a divergence. And if you're trading short-term, you don't need a big run-up. Again, a rundown. If you got puts going when you saw this divergence here, if there was one, 77 against 68. If you would have saw that divergence to say, buy me a short-term put at 184, 185, something in the money by a little bit, out of the money by a little bit. A move down to 177 gives you money. Okay, if you're wrong, you lose the premium. But again, that's not a bad thing. Let's take a look at Amazon. Tuesday and Thursday is sometimes reversal day, so we'll have to see what happens. You got high points here on the 1 month at 59 here. This had a high point of 69. So you got a new high here with a lower RSI, and now your RSI is at 52. This thing, looks like it's running out of steam. So, I'd be looking at some put opportunities here for this week on Amazon. Let's look at Microsoft. I think Microsoft's already went down. It already had its volatility. Already had its RSI divergence. Okay, yeah, you got a big RSI jump here to 77, brand new high, and it's at 70. That's your signal. And then what do you got? 352 already down to 342. A short-term option on this would have probably done very well. So keep an eye on these things. What about Meta? Okay, on Meta, you had a high point on Meta here with a 70, and then you got a big high point up here with 76, and now it's down to 62. RSI is kind of falling off a cliff here a little bit on Meta. We'll have to see if it's got more to go. Let's take a look at this one. High point there is 77. New high is 77. No divergence, but certainly it's not going through the roof. And over here, your RSI was 80. So you have an 80 RSI, and on this big new high, you're at 77. That's called a bit of a divergence. I'm keeping an eye on the put side there. Okay, let's go through the rest of the techies here. Google. Okay, Google had a high point there of 80. New high up here, 58. That's put city, right? And it's already gone from the high point of 129 down to 123. Now the RSI has popped back up, I guess, but it's only at 57. So if you want to take a look at something that might be prone for a reversion to the mean. You see, these things are way above their averages, so they could have reversion to the mean situation. And the first step is to see if the momentum is dying. That's what we're trying to find out, right? Okay, I showed you that, and let's see Tesla. Now, Tesla went up exactly where I thought it would go up. And let me show you where that was. You see this gap over here? This gap here, the low that day was 262.47, 262, and the high was the prior there is like 257. It went into that gap here, right? What's the high been? I think 263, right? So it went right into the gap. That's why I'm thinking if this thing is not going to have now the RSI is at 86. Okay, 86 on the 1 year. And over here, the RSI is at 86. So you got new high and the RSI is flattening out. Let's see if something on the 1 month gives us any clue. You've got 77, and then you got the RSI at 73, and then you got the RSI at 68, and now you got the RSI at 68. I see a divergence. I'd be watching this like a hawk. Why? Because it filled the gap. Why? Because there's a bit of a divergence happening in the relative strength, which means the car's running out of a bit of gas. Okay, let's take a look at, because I do have some others I wanted to get to. Eli Lilly and the rest of them, I think they're trying to sue the government because the government is going for more competitive drug ways. Or I don't know exactly what the case is, but I know they're suing the government, which doesn't sound like a good idea. Anyway, on a 1 year basis, this thing is obviously at an all-time, well, I don't know, is it an all-time high? Yeah, it's at an all-time high. All right. So that means everybody who ever heard of the stock has probably been buying in. So is there any sellers in there if they wanted to? Yeah. Let's take a look at the high point here of 70 on RSI. Now you got new highs here, and one RSI is 71, but the last bar is 63. That's a divergence. Now let's look at the 1 month. High point here, 71. High point there, 63. A bit of a divergence, a little bit of a drop. Now you got another big jump up. Look where this thing is, 60. And now you're back down here. This is a candidate, obviously, for put activity up in the 456 neighborhood, and it's already down to 448. Will it crack and go back down further? It's possible. Again, we'll have to see. Best time to have hit it was right around 456, 454. But that's a candidate because of the divergence. All right, let's move over to I want to show you a couple from last week that we highlighted. One was Elizabeth Estee Lauder. I don't know. My feeling is when women wear makeup, they tend to wear it for all the time, right? So when I see a stock like this go from 285 down to 175, I'm starting to get interested. And so I'm starting to look at this thing, and I did last week. And you see the RSI was at 27, and then down here it goes from 27 and jumps up to what, 39, and it gets above the red line. Okay, so once that jumped up from the 27, okay, and it jumps up all the way to 40 almost, again, that's what makes me say something could be going on. And then the options here at 180, were very inexpensive. And by the end of the week, the stock was where? Over 200. That's a lot of action on a 1 week option, believe me. All right. Another one was Dollar General. Again, this thing was, you can't beat it with a stick. Look at it. I mean, come on, this thing, well, I'll show you a longer term chart on it. I'll give you a 5 year. This thing was coining money. Look at this thing. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Now they said their customers are having trouble, I guess. So bottom line, though, is it was interesting to me last week because of the fact that you had a 14, and then you made a new low, and the RSI was 15, and then it jumps up to it doubles on that move there. So down here, just take a little bit of an activity here. It wasn't as good as Estee Lauder, but there's a big gap there too. You don't know what's going to happen. But the bottom line is that this is a discount place where Tom, Dick, and Harry can get a deal. So I thought that was interesting. So those are two from last week that we looked at. I'm looking also at these airlines. A lot of people are jumping into these airlines thinking they're fabulous. Let's see what they really look like here. Okay, on a 1 year basis, this thing is making a high. RSI hit 84, and then the new high was met with an RSI of 84. So it's about a flat RSI. Again, it could be a reversion to the mean at some point. Let's take a look at the 1 month and see if there's anything telling us that. You got a high point here of 81 on RSI, then you got a high point of 80, and now you're at 75. So again, it's something I would keep an eye on because it is extended, or a reversion to the mean is not off the table. Not one of the greater ones, but I just thought it would be worth taking a look at. Energy, Halliburton. Okay, now on a 1 year basis, this thing down here was really the play because you can see there goes 33 and then it turns into 45. So, when it makes a low and it makes lower lows and the thing jumps up to 45, that's your signal, gets above the red line, that's your double signal. And then basically it does pull back here. But again, the red line never turns down. And that's one of the reasons you stick with it. On a 1 month basis here, let's see. You had a high point here of 61, a high point there of 68, 65. So you get the drop. Now we're up here. RSI's in the 50s. So Energy's kind of rough racket. You have to keep an eye on it. Nothing glaring there. Let me show you a couple of ones that I took off of the new high list and the new low list. One is on a company called, excuse me. Well, this was one here that I thought looked interesting because this thing has come way down as well. You see, there's an RSI of 29, and now you're at 31. So that's a pretty big divergence for that kind of a move down. This thing doesn't have options, but I would watch it. You know, if you thought it might go back to the mean a little bit, it looked interesting off the new low list. A couple of other ones off the new low list. Let me see here. Yeah, this the company owns IHOP and Applebee's, and the ones Darden Foods that own all the rest of those other kind of restaurants, they're doing great, but this one's gotten nailed, and the volume was way big. So I don't know if it was a big volume sell-off that collapses everything, but right now, you know, it's it made a low down here, and then it's come down here, and now it's still hanging around 40. So I was wondering if the double low might be interesting on this one because it's a 52-week low. Let me say, another one that has news coming out this week is CarMax. Let's take a look at CarMax. This could have something to do here. You have a high point on CarMax. And again, they announced their prior quarter was a 26% drop in revenue. They're supposed to announce 19% drop in revenue this week. So let's see what it looks like here. You got 69, and then you've got 65, and now you've got 62. So your RSI is shrinking a bit. Okay. And this would probably have short-term options that might be interesting. This thing's come from 55 to 80. And a lot of people are saying that that's way too far for a company like this. 1 month, what's it showing you? Okay, you have a high point there at 60. Well, you have a high point here of 70. You got a high point there of 67, and you got a high point there of 51. You get it? So that's something I'm watching from the put side this week as well. I tell you what, there are other markets I like to cover. You can see in this format, it's very tough to give you all the details, and it definitely is tough to talk to you about different ways of trading it. And that's where a one-on-one contact with us would make a lot of sense. We can show you how we identify turning points, but how do you play it? And again, what are your choices of playing it? What is the use and the risk of the way you're playing it? That's where we can help. And that's where the one-on-one session with us directly talking to you makes the most sense. And you can talk directly to me during that session. So again, go to the website, optionprofessor.com, OPTION, professor, PROFE, SSOR.com. Put your information in there, or you can simply call the office, 702-873-8038. Again, 702-873-8038. And we can discuss, again, how we see our signals, which other markets we're looking at, because we can't cover everything here, what markets you're in, and what do our signals show. So we can cover a lot of information, plus we can cover tactical information as well, so you understand the use and the risk of each tactic you might consider. And then, of course, after you put a position on, there's another decision. How are you going to trade it? Are you going to spread it? Are you going to roll it? Are you just going to grab the money? Are you going to put multiple positions on? Or are you going to roll it out? You know, things that are going well, you might want to roll out. And these are things I can explain in detail. So if you've never done options before, we can start with the basics and build on it. I've been teaching these seminars for decades. I know how to explain it. And then, of course, if you are experienced, you know, obviously everybody has their own way of doing things. And what I like to do is hear everybody's stuff and then make my own final decision. But I try to keep my mind open because, you know, again, the day you think you know everything in this business is the day you're going out of business. So again, optionprofessor.com, put your information in and let's talk more. Again, I'm Jim, the Option Professor. It's always good to be with you. And again, if you want to call us directly, 702-873-8038. I think we got an exciting week ahead of us, guys. So again, look forward to hearing from you. And again, good luck and good trading. And we'll be back with you soon enough. Signing off, this is Jim, the Option Professor. Have a great day, everybody.